Good morning, Commanders. How are we doing today? I hope you're all doing well and you've had fun with the new mechanic. I've been reading your feedback on the recent video I put out, and I can get the sentiment both from there and from what I've read on some Discord messages that people are not liking the mechanic, and I guess I get that. For me, it's been fun just because it's a throwback to my days of spending many long hours playing these free online tower defense games. Um, and I like that it's new. Like, it's something they've never done before, and I see a lot of problems. Like I mentioned in my last video at the end, some ways I kind of off the cuff was thinking out loud and saying this is what I thought might be done to improve it. Whether that anything like that happens or not is not up to me. Obviously, that's Scopely. You're going to have to make some changes, Scopely. So I think that the biggest frustration is the lag and the crashing. Last one we did pretty good. It got to round 7. I had to adjust the strategy a little bit, but the big problem was that halfway through it crashed. I think a third of the time, if not more, if not half, my game crashes either halfway through like it did in the last one or at the beginning. So super frustrating for a lot of players. If I could say anything about it to Scopely, it would be this: the plea from the player is to fix the lag and fix the stability. You can come out with as many great and fun activities for people to do, but at the end of the day, if the game just doesn't work right, there's not going to be enjoyment in anything. We'll do it because there's an event, or we'll do it to get the benefit, but as soon as that's done, we'll drop it. Or some players will do it for an event, and then they'll drop it because it's stupid and it doesn't work right. So there's so much more potential if they would just fix those things. Okay, so today I wanted to go through in this video on looking at the event store. Many of you have looked at the event store already as it's been out. I believe there's some discussion in the community about adding some things to the event store. Many event stores ago, we gave feedback and Scopely turned that into packs, so I don't know, I kind of have a little bit of hesitation there myself. But there's a discussion going on nevertheless. What I am thinking that would be helpful today is for me to give my opinion as it is in the event store and try to apply it to you, or to talk about the thought process, because my gameplay is going to be very different from everyone else's for the most part. I mean, there's general things you'll be focusing on, but it just depends. A lot of the answers of should I buy this or should I buy that it depends, right? So let me hop into it, and I'll try to be brief. This video could go a little bit longer, so I apologize if that is the case. But I will try and focus on things in the event store from various players' levels. The Franklin, I would say that the Franklin has kind of become not so important anymore. Some players will use it in the new wave defense strategy, but I wouldn't make that a focus of the event store. Defiant ship parts, that's really tempting for me because I'm close to maxing it, and it's a great ship once you can get it tiered up, but the higher levels, it's more costly. So if you have a Defiant and you want to use it in your armadas in the Bajoran faction for those Jem'Hadar armadas, then that's something to consider. And like all event stores, we want to focus on the things that are hard or impossible to source. Those should be your priorities in an event store. Plutonium, Franklin, I would kind of skip all that. Spore drive component, that could be an option. If you don't have it maxed and you're about ready to go 40, I would think about it, because if you have a maxed discovery, when you hit 40 plus and it's maxed, then you get, through the event, you get 24 one-day speed ups each day for 4 days from doing the anomalous phenomena event. I think it's called that Sunday event. So that is fantastic for speed up. So that's definitely an option because they can be hard to get those higher tiers. Franklin, not so much. Monavine parts, we'll talk about that in a minute. The frustration with the Monavine is they only offer half the blueprints so far in the store. So it can be hard to tier up, and I'll talk about the benefit of that in a minute. So if you already have one, this is an option because it can take some time to tier it up. And the advantage of having a higher tier ship is better rewards through that loop. So Titan, I wouldn't even worry about. There's the Defiant again. Consider that as an option at your leisure. The Fuchsia parts, they're not hard to source anymore, especially with the Voyager loop. So I wouldn't worry about that. It is impossible to get the components, these interlock ones and regulator, outside the event store. So if you're trying to tier up your ship, then that's something you want to consider. You also want to keep in mind that if they come out with, and I think Rev said this in one of his videos, but if they come out with a option to get the Ferengi whip, which increases your warp speed significantly on your Fuchsia, I have to think that it's not worth having multiple Fuchsias. You're going to be able to mine so fast it's not going to be an issue. So, grain of salt there. Be careful of how much you invest in those. But those are impossible to get elsewhere, so you may want to consider that as well. Kind of skipping all this Franklin stuff. Cerritos parts. I wouldn't even bother with that. Devore parts might be nice for the lower level players if you're trying to max your Devore, which the last tier or two, especially the last tier, it takes forever to get those parts. So that's certainly an option there. The Cerritos, those parts through the Voyager loop are pretty easy to source if you need to get it that way. Officers. So the tough part about officers is you have to consider how much loot is going to cost you. Officers, they say officers are forever, which is kind of not totally true because eventually some officers drop off in value as they come out with new and better versions of officers. I would consider 7 of 9 fantastic officer for the criticals. For me, though, just as an idea, let's see here. So 10 chests will get me, and that looks like that's the same rate because that's 10 times 6 is 6,000 or 60,000. So if I had to get 100 shards, then that's going to cost me 600,000 loot. That would probably blow all my event store currency. So the epics are a little bit harder to source. The rares, like if we looked at data, I can get 100 for 200,000. So I could actually tier up data, which might be actually something tempting because that isolytic damage is fantastic for non-Armada hostiles. Data is a great officer. And we currently don't have sourcing for him in the game. So something to consider. Alonzo Freeman is a fantastic officer to get for your rep grinding. So if that's something that's interesting to you, this may be an affordable thing to get as an officer. These PvP officers, if you're into that, you'll have to look at it. But once again, consider the how much you PvP and what the cost is. I think historically and other content creators are probably going to have a better feel for this. It seems like as I've paid attention to the monthly event store loot, it's usually on the low end, depends how well you do in solo leaderboards and stuff like that. But you're probably around 400,000 to 500 or 600,000, something like that. We'll have to see what the final number ends up being for this month because it could vary. But you have to be careful and say to yourself, do I really want to spend most of my event store loot on officers? If it's something that's going to help your gameplay, then certainly something to consider. Picard is a fantastic officer. If you don't have him, I would consider investing in him, especially for rep grind. It's going to help you at the higher levels. But there may be additional sourcing that comes out. We just don't know yet. But once again, pretty expensive if you're even just going to get 100 shards to unlock him. So lastly, I would comment on Neelix, that he's fantastic if you don't have him to unlock him for your Voyager summoning, because he reduced the cost for that. So there's cost efficiency with Neelix. So something to consider when you're looking at the officers. That's how I would approach it thought-wise. Special currency. Let's see here. Usually I don't get much of anything. I don't really get anything here, except if I have leftover currency or if I don't see there's a ton to get during the month, Syndicate XP is always fantastic to get. This other stuff is either not useful or there's other methods of getting it, like Trade XP. You can get a significant amount of that through doing the Jem'Hadar solo armadas. And this other stuff, I don't know, it just either it's not valuable or not valuable enough to waste my event store loot on. So, let's see, ship refits. Cloaking is always a good thing to have here. That can help your game. I haven't really done much with that. It will help boost your attacks if you're attacking. I think people mostly would use it to cloak for armadas, but if you want to cloak and smash someone else to get revenge, that's totally up to you. One thing I would mention is I believe that the cloaking refit from the amalgam has a decent timer on it, so that can be potentially helpful to you in your TC or territory capture battles. Especially if you have contested ones, you can just cloak your amalgam, or if you have more than one, as some players have more than one, you can cloak your amalgams for some time. You're still going to get points for having that ship in the battle, but no one will be able to hit it. So, huge plus there. I probably wouldn't bother with anything else here, just my personal take. But I don't know outside of those things I mentioned with cloaking that there's going to be a lot of value. There's some stuff here, like, let's look at this one here. So there's some refits. You can look at those, see if that's something that you're interested in. Maybe the only time that you can get those significantly. Ship blueprints, I don't really do much with this. I would say if you're close to a ship that you need next, that you can go here and get it. When I looked, I don't think there was any G5. And I hate that they don't have that here or in... Oh no, they do have G5. There's the Vorcha. I take that back. It was the away team store that didn't have it in. Okay, so if you're close, then you may want to just look at the cost and see how much of your event loot is going to take to get you the blueprints that you want. And if you're close, it might be a good option. Cerritos there's a weekly event for that if you don't have it, so I wouldn't waste it here. Mantis, this is one of the few sourcing, so if you are close, it's definitely a good option because you can really get a lot of Syndicate XP in there, so you kind of consider it an investment. Excuse me. And then the Monavine, I was going to talk about that. The unfortunate thing here is that it takes 200 blueprints, but you can only get 100. And I believe there's discussions being had. Hopefully they'll increase that. The Monavine for me, because I have one, and the biggest advantage is that it gives you a refinery that pays out a significant amount of resources. So think of steel, titanium, dilithium. Let me pull up my refinery. I'll hop out real quick. And I believe it's a tier... Is it tier 7 I have? Or am I'm trying to remember. Let me pull it up. Yeah, tier 7 Monavine. No upgrades, I believe. I have some parts to do one. 2. We'll see how that goes. But I can get 90 billion titanium with a 3 chest option. And I already pulled that today. Or there's, 180 per chest. 540 billion. So you can get some good steel. And then 3.8 billion per chest pull. So a little bit under 12 billion. For the 3 chest pull per day. The thing that I don't like about it, you don't get any tokens. So if you get raided, well, it's gone. So, and for those who are in the G5 area, they know how precious the titanium can be to upgrade ship components. It's very costly. I mean, we're talking 100 to 300 billion at my level. From the level of my ships, my Corvus is tier 4, my Vorcha is tier 4 and my Corvus is tier 2. So that's about the range I've been looking at for that, and ships like my Voyager. So there's that, and then there's also a refinery. And I can't show it to you here. I believe it blocks out that doesn't have that little eye on it where you can see. But this automated ship exchange, it's like I think every 3 days. You have to run armadas for it for the Monavine and the Texas systems. But it does pay out like uncommons, so it's one additional resource to get those. So if that's something that's of value to you, definitely consider it. I'm hoping they'll come out with some additional sourcing, or at least this event store, they'll come out with some additional options to source or to increase that from 100 to 200, hopefully. And I think that's about it. I would never spend event currency on frames and avatars. If you have excess currency because you're a whale and you've got everything you want in the store, then it's an option. It's like the last thing I would look at, though. Resources and materials would be a waste, in my opinion, unless you're at the end and you have like 1,000 currency left. Go grab something in there or whatever. But it's really, there's so many other sources for it if you're patient in the game that it's really not that valuable. So that's where we're at. I'd love to hear your feedback too. Is there anything in the event store that you would like to see added? Do you have a difference of opinion on things that I've looked at that you have a different spin on? You might say to yourself, well, because I'm such and such level, this is valuable to me for X reason. I would love to hear that from everyone. So that's where we're at. I might do another video to update this video on the event store if they do update it. But for now, try and take those thoughts. Try and look for the things that are very hard or impossible to source and invest your currency in that. One other thought I guess I could add before I leave is this. When you're looking at some of the specialty ships like the Stella or the Botany Bay, ships like that where or even a Fuchsia, once again with a grain of salt on that one, because if they come out with the Ferengi whip, that kind of blows this out of the water. But there's things in the game that you can really speed up your process or doing certain loops if you have multiple ships, and those ships typically aren't that expensive. So you could have, for example, 2 Botany Bays, you go mine data twice as fast, with relatively speaking, depending upon cruise. Your Stella, if that's still something you're grinding on, you can have 2 ships. You can go out and mine like crazy. You can go out and hit those hostels like crazy. For your ISO mining, maybe you want to get a second or third miner to help you with that. So that's just some other thoughts that you may want to consider, having additional specialty ships to knock out those loops a little bit quicker. So bottom line, say come down, what's your goal? What are you looking for in the event store? What has value? But make sure you're getting things that are going to progress your gameplay. You're not going to waste resources, the event store currency, on something that you can easily source in the game if you have a little bit of patience, a little bit of time. Hopefully this is helpful. Appreciate everyone and all my supporters, all those that have subscribed. Really appreciate everyone. It's been a great fun since I've opened this channel a few months ago. And I'm excited to get your feedback and see it continue to grow. So anyways, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.